We are here to do episode 7 of Andor, the announcement. And I'm obviously hosting once again. Jack did an excellent job with Math last week. Loads of fun to listen to them talk and things, and then put a lot of weight onto how much I know at Star Wars. They're like, oh yeah, the people in this part, Mike knows about that. And I was like, I've never fucking heard of them. So I had to look it up at things to be able to do that. But I know now. I'm not going to go into it here, but I know because I have the internet. But I am joined with two amazing people that I don't know where I'm going to cut this in because we were nattering at the start when we both recorded. So I don't know where I'm going to put this in, but I'm here with two individuals, one of which is someone who is quite angry sometimes, according to his name. And I'll probably keep the YouTube stuff in the start, so you probably heard him talk. Angry Andy, how are you doing, sir? And in brief, how have you been finding Andor up to before this episode starts?
I am very well, and I have to say I am surprised how much I've enjoyed Andor so far. Um, it's been really interesting in like how slow burn it is, but I feel invested in not just the characters but the Imperials as well, which is
Mm.
something that I've been really enjoying about the show. So I am enjoying it. Last week's episode was bloody fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like a solid 45 minutes of beautiful action and a heist. And then we get a sharp turn in this episode. We delve into something a little bit different. So I do like it. I'm really enjoying it so far. It feels grounded. It feels gritty. It's very real in the way it feels, like the day-to-day livings of people under the rule of the Empire and the desperation that people are starting to go through. I do like it. It's doing good stuff for me.
I agree completely. And what about you, Dan? What are your thoughts on this? Because you binged it. I think,
I
Andy, I see.
did.
Have you been watching it weekly like me, Andy?
Yeah, I've been watching
Yeah.
it week to week. Yeah.
Right. So obviously you binged it like you did when you spoke to us with Mandalorian. You're like, I haven't watched any of Mandalorian, so I'm just going to binge both seasons completely. I was like, okay.
I did.
Yeah,
I did
you
do
can
that. I did. Yes, so I did the same with it. I kind of wanted a little bit of like downtime for after She-Hulk. I was like, I had that was 9 episodes. I want a little bit of just something else. But yeah, so I thought I'd binge it. I did the first 3
They
on
work well,
Monday.
don't they? As like
Yeah,
a
they
movie,
were
basically.
yeah, like a mini movie. I think
Yeah.
Jack said it on our Discord how well it works, and yeah, and I think Andy is right. It is a slow build, and it is it's interesting. And then I did the 4 last night, and again that whole I'm loving the kind of 3-episode structure they're having. It's almost like
Yeah.
it's like a comic book arc. So like every 6 issues you'll have an arc. And then obviously that carries on, but it's another arc. It's kind of sort of self-contained, but still an ongoing story. So I'm really enjoying that. And I think it really works and it balances out. And again, you get the kind of finale really worked because they've built up to it. You know what? I really like it. I think it's really fascinating. I'm glad it's not just another guy in a fucking jetpack on Tatooine. I'm really glad about that.
They haven't even said the T word in this series
Yeah.
yet, have they?
Oh, thank fuck.
No.
They do mention it. They do drop a few little Easter eggs and stuff that I've noticed, and a few like references and that. And I'm like, oh, I know that place.
Yeah.
In the galaxy, long, long ago, far away as well. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it because it's a really different show, and I'm loving the subterfuge. I love the kind of the backstabbing, the allegiances changing, and all this sort of stuff like that. And Andy was talking about that episode before. That gave me like Rogue One. I remember it brought me back to Rogue One, and I was like, "Fuck yes, this is the feeling I want. I want to feel
100%.
this." And I was like, "Boom, boom, boom! I'm in for this. I'm here. I'm here for the rest of the show. I'm here if there's a second season, which it looks like there already is. I think maybe coming."
Yeah.
But yeah, I am absolutely down for this, and also I can't wait for these very separate characters in very far off places to kind of come together, because a lot of this I can't predict. I have no idea where it's going to go or what's going to happen, or how this links to Andor and the rising of the rebellion.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
I'm
strange
loving
that,
it.
isn't it? It's strange. We do know the eventual outcome overall with Rogue One, and then what happens beyond that. But considering like this is like before, I mean, they've said like they've called it the rebellion, but this is before the rebellion actually fully exists. This is before star systems come together, to rally against the Empire. So we are in like the proto phase, and it's really interesting that you're right. Even though we know where it eventually goes to with Rogue One, we actually have no idea what's coming next. We don't know how far certain characters are going to go. Especially in this episode, we get a sense of what characters are willing to do and how far they're willing to go, how far they're willing to sacrifice themselves and others in order to get what they want, whether it's Mon Mothma or whether it's Stellan Skarsgård's character, who I can't remember his name.
Luthen
struggling with character names in a lot of shows at the minute.
Yeah, with House of Dragon
nothing
and
against
Rings of
Stellan
Power and
Skarsgård.
everything.
He's really good.
Yeah,
it's just something shows.
Yeah, but it's the scheming. You're right. The scheming is really great. The political sort of nuances that they're trying to explore. I can see where some people might get a bit sort of like, oh, they're doing episode 1 kind of, political scheming, but I think it's deeper than that. It's a lot more tighter than episode 1, the political sort of 100%. Jargon episode 1. This is like individual politics mixed with greater schemes, and seeing sort of like the imperial side of that politics as well, in terms of the small sort of like investigation unit within the Imperials, before it becomes full-scale war. That's really interesting because you're looking at really small-scale, like you said, subterfuge, low-level terrorism, if you like. These are like anti-terrorist. It's like an anti-terrorist police at the moment before it becomes full-scale war. I really like that. I really like seeing that side of the Empire, and like I said, the proto-beginnings of the rebellion with all these small individual people doing huge things that changes the very nature of the galaxy.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's funny because obviously last episode, Jack and Bath were hailing the episode The Eye, and I completely agree. All the reviews online are basically stellar for it. It was one of those episodes that I watched it because Megan got tired, and I was like, no, I'm watching it the night it comes out. I'll watch it again with you. And after I watched it, I was like, I can't wait to rewatch this. So I rewatched it with her, and then she audibly ahed when almost the Aurora Borealis, the actual eye opened, when that sort of, it's like a meteor shower mixed with the Northern Lights, mixed with, Star Wars. And it was just so beautiful to look at in all the right ways. And having the action intertwined with it, and you felt like you really cared about the characters. And that was one thing I was really worried about with the series. I was like, the problem is that so many of them are going to die, I'm not really going to care. And then within, 5 lines of dialogue with Nemec, I was like, I'm in. I was like, I know he's going to die because I like him too much. This is Game of Thrones all over again. This is someone I like too much who isn't Andor. Like, I like Andor as a character. I don't love him, but I think he's an interesting character. I'm glad we're following him. But it's like, I love Nemec as soon as, and you could kind of tell everyone else did. And then when what happened to him. The crunch from last episode almost haunts me. It's like, I just think about it occasionally, and I was like, oh, Nemec. And that whole scene afterwards, it was expertly done. So I agree with everything yourselves have been saying. So we'll delve into the episode. Obviously, we'll flip back and forth and stuff, but we'll vaguely start from the start. But the good thing is this show is there's about 5 different things, as you guys kind of alluded to, going on all at once. So it's we can kind of dip in now of whichever parts. But obviously, the first part that starts, and this is the part I agree with you, Andy, that I've been finding the most interesting things in this whole show for me. I love the action, obviously with the eye stuff, it was incredible. But the lore part of me, the Star Wars lover who wants to know everything about that stuff, all the Mon Mothma scenes and all the ISB scenes, the Imperial Security Bureau, with Dedra, and I wrote down her surname and I've completely forgotten what it is. And Dedra Nero. There we go, got it. She was not in the other episodes as much, but in this one, the 7th one, she was much more prevalent. But she still wasn't on screen for the most of any of the characters, but her presence and her acting, along with the guy who plays Partagaz, who I recognise as the Grand Maester from Game of Thrones, with that, the tension with it, the drama of it all, as Andy kind of said earlier, this show feels more grown up, it feels more mature, it feels more grounded. This feels, as I've described it, I think, on every episode so far of this show, for me, it feels like this was made by HBO. It's a Game of Thrones feeling level kind of maturity. It doesn't hold your hand too much. It's not full of fan servicey, showy offy things like Kenobi. I did really enjoy Kenobi, but it was almost pure fan service and added very little to the wider galaxy of storytelling. Whereas with this immediately, this is so intertwined with everything that's going on. The two stories are very opposite, but I think that Andor is showing much more of the world, whereas a lot of the other shows we've been watching, especially like Book of Boba Fett and things, it was centering in on one character doing one thing that affected nothing around them, and also was on a place, Tatooine, that we've seen so many times. There's not really anything left to explore. So I just find all of this is so intriguing. So we'll go with Andy, if you want to continue your thoughts on the ISB and any sort of other things you want to speak about, that and also the interactions later on where she has that kind of back and forth with that guy, all the sort of stuff we want to delve into with the ISB. Just let it rip.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love it. I think I alluded to it before. I think all the stuff with the Empire, the ISB, I forgot what it was called. But yeah, the ISB. That's what I was hoping we'd see with this. I was hoping we'd see the very inner workings of the Empire. And like you said, we're not being showcased Vader. We're not being showcased the Emperor. I think they mentioned him once in this as the guy, the Grand Maester, having spoken to him. Oh no, somebody else. Higher up has spoken to him, hasn't he? And he's basically saying, "You're going to do this. You're going to do all this. We're going to increase taxation. We're going to do this across the galaxy because you lot have to make up for all the frigging losses on Aldhani." And I was riveted. I was riveted by this is how it starts. This is how chaos unfurls across the galaxy because the Empire are going to start squeezing. It's like the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood, isn't it? It's like they're going to start squeezing the taxes and really starting to bring it out of everyone to the point where they're going to be broken and they've got nothing left to do but rebel. And just the intricate, quick fire dialogue, just getting straight to the point. This is what's happening. You're all to fault. And then going to, again, I've really struggled with character names at the moment, but yeah, that's it. Yeah. Going to her and then the other geezer who refused to give her access. That back and forth towards the end of the episode, absolutely superb. And she's got her own plan, he's got his plan, and then the Grand Maester's like, "Well, I agree with you actually. Your idea is superb." It's really well written, and I wouldn't have thought it would be. I thought we might just get a load of buzzwords, a load of judging by what we've already seen with with Book of Boba Fett and with Kenobi. I thought it'd just be buzzwords, get from one set piece to another, but no, we're intricately building. I mean, there's more episodes in it. I don't know how many episodes there are in this season, to be fair. I'm kind of just going week to week.
I can tell you if you want to know, or I can keep it to myself.
No, go ahead. How many are there actually?
It's 12, and then there's apparently going to be 12 next season as well. So they've got the whole entire story written out and mapped. But yeah, 12 this season, 12 next season.
Wow, that's good. I think that's a perfect amount for me. I think because we're getting a decent level of story in every episode. They're not short episodes either. They're good chunky episodes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes long. And we haven't had a single filler episode yet, to my mind. And that's an important thing to acknowledge, I think. We are getting solid story each week. We're getting solid character building drama each week. Some characters are swapped out from one week to the next with who gets more screen time. And we had a lot of screen time from the ISB this week, really sort of hammering home the repercussions of what happened in Aldhani with the heist. And then we get Andor on holiday, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. The sort of the switching and the moving back and forth between who's impacted the most week to week. Obviously, like you said, other things do happen, and there are like 4 other different stories going alongside it. But whenever the Empire come on screen, regardless of which character it is, I am riveted. I'm absolutely riveted because the uniform, it's all to do with the aesthetics as well. The aesthetics are perfect because the Empire aesthetics are very clean, very precise at the minute, and everything else in the show is a bit rough around the edges. And I'm looking forward to seeing when that possible switch kind of comes in, where the Empire starts getting a bit more sort of dark and, concerned. Well, I think when the Empire's concern starts coming from as we go through maybe season 2, possibly season 3, I'm looking forward to seeing when the tension shifts and when the Empire starts looking a bit dark and dingy, because at the moment they're all bright and cheerful in a nice shiny starched white uniforms, aren't they? And it's not going to last. And I love it.
Then Dan, what have you got to say about all of that and stuff?
Yeah, I'm with Andy. I like exactly where this is going. I like that it shows both sides of the conflict. It reminds me. Do you remember the Revenge of the Sith crawl?
Yeah.
Where it was like there are heroes on both sides, and I was like, is that? Is that? We've got the rebels and the space Nazis, which I think was maybe not so much, but it's a bit like Donald Trump, where he's like, they're both very nice people on both sides of this thing. No, I don't think that's the case, but I do like that they are showing it from the perspective of the Imperials, who they want this order, this organized. They're drawing lines in systems, but the rebels ignore them. I like that aspect, and
yeah,
I like
very like old-fashioned kind of war thing, isn't it? Like nobody cares about lines drawn on a map when you're fighting. There's no lines in reality, is there? It's just something on a piece of paper. So of course those lines are going to be crossed.
Absolutely, and metaphorical ones and moral ones, and that's what we're seeing in this episode as well. It's like Mon Mothma goes to Skarsgård and is like, you did this. You've started the flame. You've lit the fire.
It's a great scene, that, wasn't it? He was literally saying, "You're responsible for this because you wanted it," and he's basically the blowtorch, isn't he? He went, "Well, I'll light the match for you if you're not going to do it yourself." Yeah, it's fucking great, and it's that kind of sort of like combusting element that. Again, I was hoping we'd see in this. Like, this is how the rebellion starts. It doesn't start because everyone goes, "Oh, we're going to join together because we hate the Empire." No, there's got to be acts of terrorism, and there's got to be acts of sabotage. There's got to be desperation, need, ultra violence on behalf of people that don't make it to the end, where all Han Solo and Leia come in and save the day and all that. There's got to be that grittiness that we saw in Rogue One, where ground-based soldiers are dying en masse. We have to see that. And we have to see where that comes from.
And Andor even has a speech in Rogue One, if I remember rightly, of all the kind of stuff he's done, all the things he regrets doing, has had to do, all the dirty missions and black ops stuff that he's had to do to help the rebellion.
Yeah, and all he's doing at the minute is he's just trying to get away from his life. We haven't even seen any of that yet.
Exactly. And that's what I quite like, though, because I didn't know we were coming in that kind of early. I thought we were going to kind of join him maybe as he joins the Rebels or something. But this is way before that, like, really. And I quite like it's almost like they're doing Han Solo without having to do Han Solo a little bit. Because he was like, I don't want to get involved with the rebellion. I'm here for the money. I'm gonna fuck off when this is all done. But obviously, he has a change of heart, and I think we're going to see that as we know where his path leads and ends. We're going to sort of see that, and I think we are seeing a little bit of that. He's slowly but surely kind of coming around a little bit. The people around him are coming around to the rebellion and the idea of it, and he inadvertently starts it as well, which I quite, He's been hired, he's done this job, but he was literally there. He's like, I'm going to hire you, I'm going to pay you, here's the diamond, whatever, here's the kyber crystal, take your money, take your cut. But actually, he's inadvertently started, even though it was planned by Skarsgård, he's inadvertently started the beginnings of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as a reminder to people, it is Luthen Rail. But all of these are new names, so whenever I watch, that's why I'm only watching House of Dragon and Andor at the moment, because with like House of Dragon and Rings of Power, there's so many new names, it's too much. So no worries about that. I will quickly say as well, in the ISB part, there was a character who spoke, and he's called Wolf Yularen, and he is actually voiced by Tom Kane, who narrates the Clone Wars. And Yularen is in the Clone Wars in almost in like a huge amount of episodes. He's an admiral, I believe, in that, and he's a background extra in A New Hope, and he's one of the few people who survived throughout the entire Galactic Civil War up to the point of the Battle of Yavin, or really got to the start of Galactic Civil War more so, and he changed with the Empire. He knows Palpatine. He's the one who said, I've spoken with Palpatine because he's been there since the days of the Republic. He was on the ships and worked alongside Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan a lot. So he's a lot like Tarkin, but he's like one step below Tarkin and less sort of ruthless. But he spoke at the start, and I only noticed him because we watched stuff with subtitles on. So it's easier to see the character names, and that's how I remember them a lot more when I'm watching House of Dragon or this. It's so much easier remembering people's names.
Start doing that.
I was resistant to subtitles, but when it's lore-heavy stuff or dramas where dialogue gets said quite quietly, I found I pick up so much more, but never comedies. You put it on comedies and it ruins everything, so keep that in mind.
You see the joke before it even gets there.
Exactly. Watch a bit of Friends, you get Chandler's words out before he says it, and you're like, that's not actually that funny, is it? It is. But looping back to Star Wars.
Depends how bad the subtitles are.
Oh, yeah. Well, funny enough, we watched the Scream movies on Now TV. They've got all of them apart from Scream 4, which is on Netflix at the moment. And Scream 3 had the worst subtitles of anything I've ever seen. Half of it I think they used one of those automatic ones and then just never checked it. Because there were times where a character was talking, it would stop halfway through a sentence. And you wouldn't hear the rest. You wouldn't see it, sorry. It would just not be there. So it'd be like, how do we get to the... And you're like, it's a good thing I'm not impaired with hearing, isn't it? Because I'm hearing impaired. Oh my God, I can't even speak. Hearing impaired, because I would actually legitimately have no idea what they've said because I've just given up with the subtitles halfway through. But Andor don't do that. Disney pay the extra subtitle money. But let's talk about sort of Luthen Rael and Mon Mothma. So we'll talk about a little bit of their interaction, and then they can go on its own little tangents. And I will quickly say a couple of things I noticed in the background. There was a Jedi Temple guard mask, which was first in the canon in Star Wars Rebels. The Grand Inquisitor is his sort of backstory in a way. They've appeared in the comics and other places as well, but yeah, it's mainly... I think they might be in Clone Wars Series 7 as well, but they weren't in the first 6 series of Clone Wars. But they're in Rebels a lot, and they were great. And then there's also something that was in the prior appearance of Luthen Rael's artifact store, and that is a Keldor mask. And that's the thing that Plo Koon wears, because he is a Keldor mask and eye things. So there are a couple of fun things in the background. And so with this interaction with Luthen and Mon Mothma, I mean, I live for Mon Mothma in the series. Genevieve O'Reilly, I've said it every episode. She's incredible. She voiced Mon Mothma in all the animated stuff. She played her in Rogue One. She played her in Revenge of the Sith, but she's not in it very much, mainly in deleted scenes that are well worth watching. She is really into the character. Aside from the original actress who played her in the original trilogy, she's the Mon Mothma, really. And I think that she's more than showed enough that she's played so much time with that character. So if we start with Dan, with Luthen and Mothma, their conversation, what were your kind of thoughts of that? And is there anything else about Luthen Rael's antiquities?
I like all the little Easter eggs and stuff. I'm always I think there was the Sankara stones from India as well.
You will become a true believer. Loved it. Everybody was raving about the holocrons, the Sith holocrons, Jedi holocron. Yeah. I was like, no, the Sankara stones. India.
I love that film. I'm sure we could go on a massive tangent about that. But yes,
Don't
you do it, because I will talk about that film for ages.
We'll have to do an Indiana Jones watch through after there's no more Star Wars stuff.
We should do a commentary. Maybe we should do a Temple of Doom
100%.
As a run up to the fifth one before that comes out. We'll watch the 4 and then, or maybe the 3 if people aren't thinking the 4th one's a real Indiana Jones movie.
we just ignore that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, yeah, no worries. So Mon Mothma, I think, is like I've always been like familiar with her. Obviously, she's in Jedi and stuff, and I know that she's been in deleted scenes and she's in all the other series and stuff. But I never really got what she did. She's a little bit like Boba Fett. She would just kind of be there, and she'd go, "Many rebels died to get these plans," and I was like, right, okay, she's, I guess
that's a depressing speech.
Yeah, thanks.
Who's next? Admiral Akbar, please.
Yes, can I see more of the Fishman, please? I'm much more interested in him. But again, I think she's the only other woman in the galaxy at that point. So fair play to her for at least getting, another woman on screen other than Leia for, God knows how many years. Oh, unless you count the holiday special with the Wookiee wife.
You mean Andy's
I'm not
favorite
sure
Star
if he
Wars
would.
content?
Of all time. Easy. Go listen to that podcast if you haven't already.
I'll put a link in the description.
Anyway, Mon Mothma. I think she's the most fascinating character in the show. I think the kind of subtle political maneuverings and things that she's doing, and this front that she puts on, and she describes it, it's a facade, it's not real. This Mon Mothma that everybody knows, that is not me.
Yeah, and she means it even down to her family life, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Which I find, especially after this episode, I find that really, really stark. Like, because she doesn't trust her husband, her daughter may as well not even exist. There's no connection there at all, is there, between them? The family life is the facade as well, which is that's really sort of interesting. That's dark. That's dark material.
Like a marriage of convenience. It's just there to help her do what she needs to do and to get into the places she needs to get to, and the funds and shifting them around and stuff. I think she's great. I fancy her a little bit. I'll be honest. I just think it's a great performance. It's a great character. Her voice is like a gorgeous voice as well to listen to. I can imagine her giving those speeches. I mean, which she does in the previous episode at the Senate. And I think she's fantastic. I think for me, though, the standout scene for her was the scene at the party in this episode.
Yeah.
And it is a masterclass of actors and subtext. Like getting across ideas that you're not literally like, Andy's not a big fan of lots and lots of exposition. This isn't that.
No.
Like we all know exactly what is going on without them having to say a single thing about it, really. To not for her to go, "Hey, you mate, you're right. You want to join the rebels?" Great one. It's
don't tell anyone though.
Don't tell anyone. It's a secret. Oh, I should have said that bit. I said it too loud. And I think that's the highlight of the episode for me. It's not flashy. It's not guns going off. It's not spaceships or other worlds or anything. It's just two great actors doing exactly what they need to do and absolutely nailing it and getting the idea across to the audience. And again, like Andy and you were saying, very mature storytelling, mature writing. They are not pandering. They're not over-explaining anything. They're like, you will understand this because you're clever. You're with us on this journey.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna dumb it down for you. Wherever you're from, America, England, wherever, all over the world, this is the story and this is how we're going to tell it. And we're confident in how we're telling it. And I think it was just, I watched it again because they kind of blended in a little bit when I watched those four in a run. So I was like, I'm going to watch that one again just to make sure I know what it actually occurs in that. But I think that's been one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. And I think that's worth a scene study alone for like young actors and stuff to go, right.
Yeah, 100%.
What's the subtext and how do we get that across?
Yeah, because it's like you say, the masterclass in acting. It's right from the very off as well when she comes in and she's all smiling and all playing the game. Because it's all political scheming, isn't it? So they've taken cues probably from Game of Thrones, with like how to talk whenever people are listening and the wars are listening. But don't let anything on. Come with me. I'll show you the real truth. And you're immediately engaged with it because you're going, oh fucking hell, they're trying to hide something here. What the fuck are they doing? This is great. And other people are watching. And she says throughout, she's like, you can't trust anyone here. Can't trust anyone here. None of this is real. This is all fake. And even when her husband comes closer and she goes, he's one of them. I was like, fucking what? And she didn't say that specifically, but she's like, I think he's probably a spy. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. She's literally living on the edge, whether it's real or not, whether he is, a spy working for the ISB, her driver working for the ISB. Is that all in her mind? Is that real? That's what is really interesting about it, because even at this early stage, before any of this becomes sort of, goes galactic wide, and the rebellion fully starts up, they're in this precarious position. It's almost like Soviet Russia kind of thing, isn't it? Where like if you say the wrong thing, you fucking disappear, you're gone. If you caught out,
I was going to say, it's like Nazi Germany. You're operating under, like France or Poland. You're operating and trying to get things done while being behind and in enemy lines, and you don't know who to trust. You don't know what you can say or who you can go to or who knows what. And I really like that, and I think this is again a show much like Rogue One where it feels like a war. It feels like a wartime drama, and I really am enjoying it. I love the tension as well. Like almost every scene in every episode, there is some real fucking nail-biting tension where you can't look away, and you're like, oh, teeth! You're biting your teeth. You're hoping they get past the asteroids, that sort of thing. And I'm loving it. I think this is just below The Mandalorian for me in terms of Star Wars Disney content, because I'm here for it. I'm here for like I said, I'm here for both series, all the episodes. I am fully invested in the rise of this rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where I've been saying to people I know around me, I'm like, people who don't like Star Wars can watch this show and enjoy it, because as much as I love Star Wars, there's a degree of goofiness. There's either the dialogue's a bit off, or there's a scene that doesn't work properly, or the CGI's dodgy, or something's been forced in. In most of the films, there's something. And in a lot of Book of Boba Fett, you had that. In Mandalorian, not as much. But where it's so episodic, people go, that episode's weak, that episode's great, that episode's weak, that episode's great. And it happened with Kenobi a lot. And I think that, and I've said it many times, but I think Kenobi, if that was a movie, I know someone's cut it together to make it into a movie. But if that's a 45-minute movie, even a 3-hour movie, that would have worked so much better, because you've got these slow scenes, and then when there's a problem with it, like a dodgy coat scene, instead of it being vaguely glazed over, it gets magnified and magnified and magnified and magnified. And the problem is that with this show, what I love about it, rather, is that there's no moments that pull you out of the galaxy far, far away. I love the prequels, and I love all Star Wars content for the most part, really. I don't love the Clone Wars movie, but when you're consuming most of the movies, there's moments that pull you out. There's moments like Rise of Skywalker. I've got hundreds of issues with that film, but there's a bit, where Poe goes, "Oh, somehow Palpatine's returned," and you're like, so no one, you're just not going to explain it at all in this film, and you're literally saying to us, you're just not going to explain it to anyone in this film. And it's just, there's so many elements of so much Star Wars which just lose us for a moment. But when you're in a fantasy show, just a moment is all it takes to kind of ruin it a bit. And that's what happened with the end of Game of Thrones. And that's what happens, which isn't happening with House of Dragon. It's that when you're in it, because everyone is doing such a great job, the music, the acting, the story, everything's well thought out. It all feels like you're in this and it's locked. And as Dan said, there's so much tension. You can feel it in every scene. And it feels like this thing is just bubbling over and you can sense it and everyone's kind of feeling it. But it's that unspoken thing which links in with what Mon Mothma was saying in that conversation. So it just marries together so well.
Yeah, it's because the world feels real. It feels lived in, because we're seeing ground level. We're seeing even ground level Coruscant. Where that security guard, that dishonored security guard, is gone back living with his mum. We're seeing the mundane, low level life of all of these characters. Even Mon Mothma, even though we're seeing her home life, we're seeing Stellan Skarsgård character, hiding himself in plain sight with the wig and the way he dresses. And when we first saw him, it's completely opposite. To why he looks a bit more disheveled, his hair's kind of all over the place. So we're seeing like the very grounded reality of living under the Empire, and that's something we don't really get in Star Wars. We see the grandiosity, we see the explosiveness, we see the fun stuff, which I think is why Rogue One has resonated so much with me and continues to do so. Purely because it is gritty. But even in that film you have grandiosity. The music is quite flamboyant in places. In this, it's different. It feels more like Blade Runner than anything else. Blade Runner 2049 or something like that.
What a film!
It feels really gritty and yet depressing in places. But it's showing us the reality of their situation before we get to the grand moments, the Battle of Endor, the Battle of Hoth, and things like that. We're seeing the nasty side of it. Just stormtroopers on every corner, people looking over their shoulders, even when they're just going down corridors and things like that. There's Imperial officers there. Oh God, be careful what you're doing. You're seeing people actively, looking around and keeping their head down, and it's interesting. We're seeing like 70s, 80s sci-fi when it was all dystopian. This is a dystopian world that these people are living in, that Andor is living in. Mon Mothma's living in. It's a dystopian reality, and then we're seeing them on different levels of that dystopian chart. Mon Mothma's right up there trying to get through it, trying to do what she wants to do, what she can do, but at the same time she's got to put on this face that doesn't exist. It's fascinating. And that's what's gripping me more than anything. It's the fascinating parts of this grim world, because it does feel so well lived in, and people are dying in the episodes. We're not getting this, oh, everyone's okay come the end of it. No, we've lost half the cast already from what we started off with. They're already gone. They all died in Aldani. And I thought most of them would get out of that, but no, fucking hell. It's only Cassian and that girl. There's another girl that got out of it as well, didn't she? But we didn't see anything of her really in this episode, did we? So
no, she got on a speeder bike, didn't she, and just drove around a bit. There's
going to be more coming from that, because we saw that one scene with the bloody Star Destroyer, and it's the fear. So when she's getting away and she looks up and sees that Star Destroyer flying overhead, you instantly go, "Oh shit!" I know I did. I vocalized, went, "Oh shit," and that's what you should have. That's the feeling you should get with the Empire. We're so used to them. We know they get defeated, but at this point, they're terrifying. They're massive. There's no stopping them. So any moment of looking, going, oh crap, we should feel that as well through the characters, and we are doing, because they are terrified at every turn.
This is what I've been wanting from a Star Wars show. Like we were expecting Boba Fett to be so different from the Mandalorian, to do something so different, because otherwise it's just another guy in Mandalorian armor with another jetpack, shooting people. This is the kind of stuff I want to see, taking risks, doing new stories, going to new time periods in Star Wars, new characters, new locations, new situations. All of this is exactly what I've wanted for a very long time. Since I watched The Mandalorian anyway. But I am absolutely here for it. And I hope that, I know they're doing a lot more kind of like they're doing the animated kind of prequel stuff. I know they're doing another What If thing. But yeah, just do more of that. Take risks, take chances. Do your Werewolf by Night. Just don't stick to, it might fall on its arse, but at least you tried. At least you gave it a go. You didn't just go, oh, well, just guess we'll do a Boba Fett show because Mandalorian works, but we won't make it that different anyway. So that's what I want. And so I'm absolutely here for Andor. And this is how you do a prequel. This is how you, if you want to call it a prequel, whatever it is, you're still within that world. It feels the same. It's got the same, like Andy was saying, the aesthetics, the rough, gritty feeling, that downtrodden, that risky, like anybody could die at any moment, and they do. That's exciting to me. You meet a character and they're dead. Like, oh shit, or one stays alive. Oh great, but I love that I can't predict anything or expect anything from this show, because I have no idea, and that's the quality of the performances, the writing, the world building, you name it. I'm very, very happy to be on the Andor train, the Andor Express.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a kind of show that, due to the name and its nature, on the surface is one of the least marketable ones, because there's no name attached to it that everyone, like, no one watched Rogue One and went, Andor was a standout character, because they all were stand out in their own way. So it was an ensemble. So you think of Rogue One as Jyn Erso's story with an ensemble. That's generally how it goes. And when they announced Andor, it was like, oh, I guess they're doing an Andor show. But because they already did Star Wars Rebels, they really could have called it, Early Rebellion or something like that. But that doesn't really feel right because it is following Andor. So it was one of those things that I was skeptical before going in. Obviously, I was going to give it a go. But it's as yourself said, like, the Empire is actually really scary in this. And I think the reason that it works so well, like when a TIE fighter comes down, you're in fear, like you would be if you're in an occupied city and there's a tank going through, or a car with a chain gun on the back, or a helicopter overhead. That's how you would feel in real life. But in the Star Wars movies, because we mainly follow Force users, which are really cool, by the way, I love lightsabers and, space magic, but because we follow them, when there's a TIE fighter flying towards the main character, you go, Rey, do a backflip and slice it open. You go, Vader, crush it with your hand. You go, Luke, deflect the laser that's being shot out of it. And then you go, oh, well, they're going to fly away. Well, they've got, the Millennium Falcon, the most indestructible ship in all of Star Wars that has about 1 billion guns, infinite deflector shields. Yeah, the hyperspace doesn't work at inconvenient times, but it's basically indestructible and always in vague disrepair. But it's a ship that lives through it. In this, there isn't that. There's no safety net. There's no, apart from Andor, and obviously what we know about Mothma, none of the characters have got this weight behind them. They're not Jedi or none of this stuff. There's actual stakes. That's one of the big things. That's the hardest thing to get right with a prequel series. And that's one of the hardest things about Star Wars, because they're so much of their content is so built on nostalgia or other content, which I appreciate in a lot of ways. You lose certain stakes. And that was an issue I had with the Clone Wars to a degree. But whereas in Star Wars Rebels, whole new host of characters. You didn't know what was going to happen. And stuff happens. And you feel it. Yeah. That's the difference. Whereas with Kenobi, thought Kenobi was great. But you know immediately, well, Leia's not going to die. You know that nothing major is going to happen to him. You know Kenobi's going to survive. Yeah. So it's like, well, immediately off the bat, you've got the 3 main characters. You know they're all going to be basically fine. So all the stakes are taken away. So you have to just grip with the moments. Whereas with this show, it's like, I can't choose a single moment. There's a couple of scenes that stand out a bit, but every minute I am enthralled in it.
Yeah. Just going back to what you said about the TIE fighters, it's very much taken from sort of like World War II, classic World War II films. And I'd even sort of say like Dunkirk as well. I don't like that film, but the dive bombers in Dunkirk, that screeching noise as they're coming in, just rains terror on troops because they can't go anywhere because they're stuck on the beach of Dunkirk. So when those dive bombers are coming in, Stuka dive bombers, that's the sense that I got when we saw the first TIE fighter come over the hills in one of the earlier episodes, when everybody goes, get down, there's a TIE fighter. Usually everyone just goes, shoot it out of the sky, no problem. In this, they literally shit themselves and try and hide. And I was like, fucking hell. And then when it flies overhead, the noise was ridiculous. It's like they amped up the effect of the TIE fighter by about 10, because it was loud, piercing. And you got to think, right, okay, if you're on a ground war, or you're trying to do something, some subterfuge or, infiltration, and the TIE fighter flies over, of course it's going to be piercing. Of course it's going to be loud. And likewise, any tanks. It's one thing that Rogue One got really right. So like the tank warfare, the ATSTs, and that when the ATST shows up in Jeddah and it wipes everybody out and they all flee, and then when the AT-ATs come on Scarif and everyone shits themselves and runs. But seeing it from the ground level up is exactly what you get in the World War II drama, like Band of Brothers and things like that. That is where the tension's coming in. So when they come away from the political side of it, they've got this fundamental thing in place of going, when we do battles and we do have war, we're going to show you how miserable that is and how painful it is, not just in terms of fighting and whatever, but the cerebral side of it, having to deal with the shell shock, being attacked by dive bombers and ATSTs and whatever. That's where they're nailing it at the minute. I think just in terms of like the other sort of little bits and pieces of showing, well, the rebellion's got a long way to go before they even get X-Wings, because the TIE fighters are relentless, noisy, horrible moths of despair that are just going to wipe you all out. Wonderful stuff. And I think they're nailing it, not just in the writing, but in the way they approach that side of it.
Mm-hmm. Dan, do you have anything to add before? I was going to go on to Cassian returning home, but is there anything on what we've just spoken about before I take a segue?
I like Mon Mothma's car.
Oh, the limo.
It is a nice car. It is a nice car.
It's a car. It's definitely a car. There's no way you could not call that a car, because it looks exactly like a fucking car. It's like a blue version of the Batman animated series Batmobile almost. It's got the grille on the front and
definitely a Star Wars Bentley, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't take me out of the show. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of like it. I kind of like because obviously she's she's a high-ranking political, party leader, member, whatever. And she drives around. She has to show who she is and to keep up that facade that we've talked about. And I think that car does it kind of brilliantly as well. I think it's a good kind of, again, it's that shell she's put around herself of this, pomposity.
It's the balancing of the scales, isn't it? And Andor's wearing dirty clothes. Mon Mothma's driving around in space Bentleys. We have to see it. We have to see it. We have to see both sides of it. It doesn't take me out of it at all.
No.
In fact, it adds to it. It adds to the when she's saying this isn't real, none of this is me. It adds to that. It adds to that flavor of her character. Like she spent a fortune on this stuff that she doesn't even believe in because it's the only way she can keep herself safe so that she can do what she can. It's compelling. It's great.
Really. I do think that maybe, like, this is my only kind of prediction I can kind of, present. I think that maybe her husband might be a rebel too, but she doesn't know it. And then I think what's going to happen, because obviously there's this tension, and I think he believes that she is getting deep in with the kind of the Empire, and that's why there's that tension there. And he's like, "Oh, you're so boring, you're so square," and all this. I think what's going to happen is he's going to discover, or she's going to discover, each other is a rebel, and it might be nice because it might rekindle their romance. So I'd like to see a little bit of, just a little, a slip of happiness or a little win for the character. So I don't know if, but I also see it going the other way as well, where he's like, yeah, I am with the Empire and you're a rebel scumbag.
I'm Darth Vader. Oh my God.
Oh no, the canon. What have we done to the canon? No. But yeah, no, it's just that really. I like the car. I like the car. It's cool. I like the antique shop. I like all the little bits. I love his kind of his camp kind of arty alter ego. Stellan Skarsgård, Mr. Rail. Sorry, Mr. Rail. Or I
was going to call him Stellan.
Stellan Rail. I love that kind of the persona he's having. I like his the female partner in the shop. I don't know her name either. I don't know any of the names, but she's really cool.
Claire,
of course. Much like Doctor Strange's partner as well. But yes, no, go ahead. You carry on. It's your podcast. I don't know why I'm kind of taking it over, but you
don't take it over. I'm asking. The thing is,
you do what you want to do, Mike. I'm just here. When you wouldn't.
Mike, be quiet. I'm going to tell you that you could do what you want to do. No, it's fine. It's fine. In all honesty, it's one of those things where, especially when I was hosting like every episode, I was like, I was finding myself, especially when I was editing it or just skimming through and removing silences, I was like, okay, I'm talking quite a lot. Although it is my show, I'm repeating the same things quite a lot. So I want to let people talk. And where me and Jack are doing like rotating stuff, it's not like a guest comes on lots and lots of times. I think one or two of you may be on next week or a future one with Jack anyway. But a lot of the guests is kind of like the singular, or because I'm doing every other week, I'm just trying to take a little bit of a back step. But with that, I will just add one more thing.
You are talking to somebody whose podcast is, prepare for prattle.
I know.
So don't worry. I think you're doing fine. I think you're doing great.
I have no doubt. I'm doing great. I'm doing amazing.
You're
amazing,
doing great.
Andor. That's what
I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here to support you in any way you need. But yeah, I want to get Mon Mothma's car. That's my point.
Awesome. Well, I was going to say with Mon Mothma, I find that the show is all about opposites and the antithesis of each other, and it's trying to show how the rebellion kind of pulled its way out to the Empire, but also how some of its core parts are still connected intrinsically to what's going on. And obviously in this way, because the Empire is the majority and the rebellion hasn't been born, all the rebellious acts seem like terrorism, as the Empire calls it. And that is apt in a lot of ways, because that's how insurgency and rebellion starts. It starts as the small terrorists and it becomes the real government in an ideal world. Let's not talk about real world politics in that regard. It gets too mucky. But you've got Mon Mothma and you've got her opposite, who's also so
it's a
similar.
Bit of a shit show at the moment, to be honest.
I don't want to delve into that. Don't want to delve into that in any way. But with Mon Mothma and Dedra, like, they are both incredibly intelligent, powerful people who are being basically overlooked and underestimated by everyone around them, and they're both so far ahead of everyone. but they're both on opposite sides. And you get to see how these incredibly clever individuals navigate through the endless bureaucracy, the what you can and can't do. You can't just pull out a blaster and shoot people and then you've solved the problem. You say a wrong word at a wrong time, you're gone. Everything has to be so careful, and both of them are doing it in very different ways. And I love seeing them both. Those two are my standout characters. Everyone in this has not been a weak character, but those two are just, every time they're both on screen, I want more, to be honest. And I won't say what's coming, but if anyone has seen Star Wars Rebels, there's a specific episode, and you know that something's going to happen. Something specific. And I encourage everyone to watch Star Wars Rebels, Dan, because Star Wars Rebels is probably the best piece of Star Wars content that exists outside the original trilogy. I'd say Clone Wars is, a lot of people say, is equal, but Clone Wars is very up and down with stuff, but I think Rebels is quite consistent. But without me talking about Rebels, I always try and get in at least one episode. If one person watches Rebels because of this show, I'll be happy, and I'm hoping a lot of people will. But Cassian, obviously the show's about him, kind of. He goes back home, and just to say to Jack and Math, ha ha ha, you guys were wrong, even though, you'd have no way of knowing, because Dan says it's impossible to predict. They didn't think he was going to go back, or we were going to see any of those characters again. Ooh, that stings. I'm obviously joking, just pulling their legs, because not here to defend themselves. But what did you guys think of Bix and Marva? Obviously, Marva being the sort of mother figure of Andor, the adoptive mother. Andy, what did you think of Cassian's return and seeing Bix and Marva?
It was sad, wasn't it? A bit sad. He's come back to rescue them. And yeah, she doesn't want to be rescued because she's intrinsically locked where she is. She fundamentally believes that her place is there and that she can do some good where she is. And it's sad, I think, because clearly she, apart from the other girl, she's the only reason why she comes back. He comes back specifically for his mother. I mean, we know it's not his mother, but and you can see the tears in his eyes, can't you? The whole realization that he's never going to see her again if he does leave. And I think that'll be it. I think we'll probably see her again as the audience, but he won't. And I think that will have a greater impact on sort of where he goes. And it could be like the catalyst for the rest of what he does as a character going forward. That whole sort of, not sort of carefree, but, guns blazing kind of attitude where he will just do anything and, not really care about the outcome for himself. Because we there's that. It's not bloodthirsty in Rogue One, but it's that sort of like do or die nature. We saw it for the Aldani heist, but it wasn't necessarily like, if I die here, then who cares? It was a case of, I need this money. I want to get this money so I can get out, so I can get my family and go somewhere quiet. And that's all he wants to do. And that's a very sort of like classic Western sort of ideology as well, isn't it? The old West kind of thing of like, get that big score and then we'll go settle out west somewhere quiet where no one will ever find us. But he's still living in a bit of dreamland, and she sees the fundamental reality of the situation, that there is no hiding. And I think by the end of this episode, I think Andor realizes that himself, doesn't he? He realizes that, oh yeah, wherever you go, the Empire are going to be there and there's no escaping it. Yeah, it was a little bit. I was surprised that he went back, to be fair, but I think in terms of, like I said, that character building, the final journey, the sort of pushes him on. We did need to go back. We did need to see everybody basically telling him you shouldn't have come back. Why have you come back? Why have you done this? Everyone blames you for what's happened. Which is a bit harsh. I think it was that dickhead who decided to, ignore his boss and go and, try and find this person that was causing chaos. It's his fault, but obviously when civilians die, it becomes, Robin Hood's fault, doesn't it? So, yeah, it's sad, really sad. But again, another example of really great writing, really great, driven emotion, purely from a script perspective. It was very tight, very compact. Really heartfelt, moving scenes. They're able to balance a lot of different emotions and a lot of different things in this show, and I'm surprised. Like, I'm not surprised. It's welcomed that they're able to do that, and I'm just a bit sort of like, why can't you do this sooner in other shows? Give us those heartfelt moments better in other films. Like, where was this level of writing and complexity and character building in the sequel trilogy? Where was this level of complexity in the Han Solo film?
I'll tell you where. It was because Disney were trying to make their money back from buying Star Wars so quickly. They're like, we need to make the money back quick. Sequel trilogy, it's throwing a solo movie. Let's just put Rogue One together, throw that in. And then Rogue One was like a massive hit. And then quietly in the background, they were like, well, let's try and foster this. Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna, because Diego Luna is listed as an executive producer, at least on this episode. So I presume for most of the series. And you can see in interviews, he's so passionate because he was like, the biggest shame about Rogue One was such a cool character and a world and basically a vibe we created within Star Wars, and we didn't get to explore it. And it's a new angle in a way. And so because Diego Luna and Tony Gilroy wanted to do it, and because Tony Gilroy doesn't love the Star Wars universe as much as other content creators like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau do, he puts a great story together, and then with help from the story department, attaches in canon character names and events to good stories put together. Whereas what Dave Filoni does, as much as I love a lot of what Dave Filoni does, a lot of the time it's like, the fans love this character, let's pop him in. And it's like, okay, but if it doesn't make sense or it's worthless, you've actually weakened the character. And things like that, and that's kind of what Book of Boba Fett felt like. It was like, let's just do this thing. And it felt like they didn't actually have something written for him. They were kind of writing as they went, almost. And that's the problem with it. And when your writing is iffy, like with the prequels had, it scales up. And it becomes harder and harder to course correct bad writing or weaker writing. Whereas with Andor, because no one was, no one's been desperately asking for more Andor, more Rogue One, because everyone's like, we can't, it's over. So they could quietly create this. They spent a few years doing it. I think it's been in production pretty soon after Rogue One's success. So it's been years quietly in the background. They've had, and Diego Luna said this is one of the biggest things they've done to scale. They've shot on location all across the world. So it shows that because of Rogue One was so successful and made so much money, I'm hoping what Disney kind of thought is, right, let's put the money we kind of made into Andor. Let's give this show lots of budget. Let's not make a fuss about it. Let's not tell loads of people about it. Quietly let the creators, like what they did kind of with Rogue One. I know Rogue One had some trouble in the behind the scenes stuff, making it and whatnot. But eventually Rogue One with Tony Gilroy made something amazing. And so they're like, right, now if you try this again, but without any complications, without a true time limit, they probably said about 5 years, but they were like, you don't have to make it for next year. It's not Rise of Skywalker where it's like, we're still writing the script when we're filming the earlier scenes, which is what Daisy Ridley said in an interview recently. And it's like,
there's no denying it when your lead actress comes out and goes, well, I only found out I was doing this on the day we were filming. Really? Fucking hell.
Exactly. You need the plan.
I remember when J.J. Abrams came out and he was like, oh yeah, I should have probably thought about more than that first one. And I was like, fucking hell, mate.
Nothing infuriated more than hearing that fucking statement. I was like, you fucking what? You what?
Even just a fucking rough outline. Fuck me, like anything.
Yeah.
Nope.
But that's the thing with this show. You can tell it's been written from the inside out rather than the outside in. Like you said, Mike. Like they're not looking at random characters, not looking at cameos or anything. They've got Easter eggs, but Easter eggs are just bits and pieces on the shelf. Like my collectibles. A lightsaber here. The mask of Starkiller there. The mask of Temple Guard. It's not inflicting upon the story. It's not weaseling its way in to send you on a different direction. It's just a thing where you go, oh, that's interesting, cool. But now listen back to the political scheming. It's icing on the cake. And it's not too much icing that you go, oh, that's a bit sickly. It's the perfect amount of extra to quench those taste buds of what we're already getting, which is solid writing and really great storytelling in a minute, coupled with some quality performances all around. But yeah, so I'm glad that they were given the time and the patience and for once, Disney has, given the creatives the leeway to do what they wanted rather than coming in at the final hour and going, no, change all that, cut that. You're fired as a director. We're going to get fucking what's his face in to finish it off, and then you get a jumbled mess at the end. This feels like what it should have been all along. Like somebody's come in with an idea and gone, let me do this, and they've gone, okay, no problem. Come to us when you want to do something. And rather than using that all round screen technology, it looks really great that they're using actual real places and tarting them up for their own purposes. But it looks great because it does feel lived in. Like I said before, it feels like a real environment. There's nothing wrong with that all-round screen technology. I think it does work a lot of the times. When you want to create somewhere that doesn't exist, like Aldani or in Mandalorian where they go to the spider planet. It looks great when you want to create something like that. But when you want to do solid base drama, you need to have real sets that exist in real time, populated by real people, even if they don't feature in the show, because it's a real place, that there are people probably sat up in the rafters watching, going, "Oh, they're filming Star Wars down there. That's great." You get that real sort of vibrant feeling because it's a real place, and it's working for it.
And it only assists the actors with getting into character and feeling the environment, the mise-en-scene and everything. Ewan McGregor said he fucking struggled during the first, his prequel trilogy. It's just fucking blue on blue and green on green. It's nothing. And you have to create it, and they'd be like, "Oh, we don't know what it's going to look like yet." Oh, okay, so I'll just fucking imagine this thing, this giant iguana.
I'd love to be in it just to hear how it was described to them. Like, you're on the bridge of a starship. There's loads of droids around you. Your cues for fighting. All right, off we go then. I mean, that's not great. I mean, obviously, with the all-round screen technology for Mandalorian and Boba Fett and whatever, they've alleviated some of that because you can see in real time your environment. But when you touch the wall and it's actually, a living, it's a real wall, a real set, in bloody some subway down in London, because they film stuff in London, haven't they? All over the place, I think.
London, Scotland, and the dam in it. I just want to quickly say that I remember Jack and Math talking about the dam in the last episode. It's real. It's a real dam in Scotland. So that whole thing is so real. But sorry, Dan, I think you were...
I was going to say the dam. Yeah, the dam is a real place, and that infuses the actors. That infuses your sense of where you are in the world. They're infiltrating a real place. It's a real place. They're climbing over railings to get into a building. It's real.
I always appreciate practical effects and sets. I just always have, because there's an artistry to it. You've made it. It looks real, and again, it pulls you in. It draws you in, like Andy was saying, to this world, this lived-in universe, and that's what you want. You want to feel like it's real, like truckers in space and shit like that. You want to feel that it is real and believable, and it's not just space wizards flying around doing crazy mad flips and shit. You want to feel connected, and I think what you were saying, Mike, was really interesting, because it says to me that the writing is so strong, the performances are so strong. If this was not a Star Wars product, this show would still work.
Yes.
You could, like we said, we could set it in World War II. We could set it in, whatever, the Cold War, whatever conflict you want to talk about, whatever bloody fascist regime you want to talk about, communist regime or something. The show would still work. The characters would still work. Knowing about Rogue One or not, knowing about where it's going to go, this show on its own would work regardless. And I think that just goes to show, again, the amount of time, effort, and again, this director, these creators, they've gone, right, like we said, we'll create that story, but it just happens to be in the Star Wars universe.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And so we'll start to wrap up here because we're over the hour mark. So there's one more thing just to mention, and then we will wrap up, and that is just the final scene. So we've kind of lightly spoken about it, but it's basically when Andor's on holiday. He's either got a new girlfriend or has
on holiday,
or has paid a woman for. It's probably a pleasure resort, isn't it? It's like a 5-star hotel, but you can see what I get is either she's a very nice, probably expensive girlfriend, or more likely he's paying for sex. It's once again a Star Wars brothel in a sense, which we saw in, I think, the first episode of Andor. And obviously he's hiding his money and stuff, and he goes down to the shop. And this is social commentary in such a good way. This is very, very, very clearly doing a thing on, it could work in war. It could work in 2020 or 2021 with the Black Lives Matter movement. It could work, you could insert political prejudice or dictatorship here, and the whole bit in Andor, you tweak a few things in post and it could work for literally anything. And that is, it's so powerful. So Dan, please tell us, what do you think of that scene and any other thoughts of that or that we haven't tackled as far?
I got, the way it was shot, I got a real kind of flashback to Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
When he's walking down the street, he's going to the corner shop. He's going to pick up everything. We see it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, we see him go normally, what he's every day like, and then obviously the following day it's the zombie apocalypse, and we see all the differences and stuff. But as he's going, it's like, okay, it looks like a holiday resort. It does look like a beachfront property. It could be. It's Benidorm, isn't it? It's just Benidorm. that's what I saw when I watched it. I was like, it is Benidorm. It's a little bit and a little bit. But it's a holiday, and we follow him, and he's walking down, and they play some music. I'm sure there's some
music in the background, isn't there?
There's some sort of music, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And then we see someone run past, and it's again we're holding on Luna's face, and he's just kind of walking, and he's got this weird garb on. This kind of holiday garb, if you will. That's probably his like a version of a Hawaiian shirt, I guess. Star Wars, the Hawaiian shirt, and then there's people running, and then there's noise, there's kind of kerfuffle, and he kind of starts worrying because there's a guy running, so he thinks, shit, maybe they'll recognize me from all these wanted posters and things that have been about. I might shave, but I'm still recognizable. And then this trooper stops him and says, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm not doing anything." And then again, we have this like, "Oh, well, you're part of it, aren't you? That's why you look like you're running." He's like, "I'm not running. I'm literally stood here with you. I'm not going anywhere." And he's like, "Why don't you run after that guy?" And he's like, "No, we'll get him. But you're staying here." But the music became a bit too powerful, so I missed a couple of bits of dialogue. And it's something about a watch, and he's getting strangled. The K2SO type robot comes along and starts trying to strangle him. But I couldn't work out because he said, "Oh, he meant this. He meant the watch. He meant this."
It was he said, "You hang here." So you
right.
just hang here, and then so K2S or the K2SO sort of thing was like, "Oh, hang him."
Got it.
And the clever also thing where obviously K2SO, an Imperial security droid, eventually we know he connects, and there's rumors I've heard, or not rumors, there's theories. These aren't spoilers, I promise you, Tonya, if you're listening. There's a theory I've heard, which is he's gonna BMO or B2 Emo. He should be called B3 Emo, so he should be B3 Mo. I don't know, but B2 Emo. There's a theory that his droid's going to get destroyed, and he's going to transfer that consciousness into K2SO and it's into a destroyed Imperial security droid, and they're going to kind of merge. And I was like, that's a really cool idea. They already did a comic on it, which was not great. And if they retcon that comic, I'm fine. It was a one-off special kind of promotional thing.
I think B2 Emo should have had that kind of that haircut with the fringe.
Just Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yeah, just over one eye. I think that would have made it. That would have really made it for me. But yeah, that's quite good, though. I didn't realize that because, again, like you were saying, the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd is quite a similar situation where it's like, there's and that because obviously the droids these droids aren't meant to be very clever. They aren't meant to know a million dialects and languages.
Yeah, they're just meant droids, aren't
they? They are just thick
Ounces.
thugs, and the fact that they can miscommunicate and exactly. And the fact that they can misunderstand and misread and stuff. I also really like the droid in his mum's house. I didn't get to mention it earlier, but that line she says where I'm going way back in the episode now, but that line where he goes, I can't leave. I'm going to be worried about you. And she goes, that's love.
Yeah.
Like that's love, and it's kind of heartbreaking. I think she's trying to make up for abusing Harry Potter all those years. I think with Andor, she's trying to make up for her child abusing ways by adopting him and and finding a way. But yeah, and I love the court. I love the court, the kind of kangaroo court they have as well.
This used to be a 6-month sentence. 6 years. What?
that is if you ran a bloody courthouse, Andy. No,
brilliant. It's a very we had a very heavy political episode, didn't we? And yet we do get a bit of dark levity at the end because he is literally just minding his own business. He's trying to get away from it, and the shore troopers are chasing after this gang, and he's just like, oh, fucking hell, Jesus, I'm gonna keep my head down. Where are you going? Oh no. And you know exactly what's coming. You know it's just gonna spiral and snowball for him. It's a great ending to the episode. And the way that we see the K2SO droid, the security droid, where it comes up the steps, because I think my missus did exactly the same thing. She went, ooh, that instant recognition to K2SO. And then, because we know what's coming, don't we? Again, it's like the small things are predictable of what we're going to see in the future, but it's the immediacy of it. We see the shore troopers, obviously Scarif, and but it's just a great little fun little ending. I love the shore trooper design. It's one of my favorite Disney Star Wars editions. I think is the shore trooper design. Other than Kylo Ren's lightsaber, it's the shore trooper design. Such a great looking stormtrooper. So different, and yet they're still grumpy arseholes. Where are you going? I'm going to the shop. Are you? Well, you're under arrest. What? 6 years. Ding.
There was another scene I really like in this episode. Again, going back in the episode a bit, but when they're talking about basically Andor's dad, is it Clem? I think it was called Clem.
Yeah, that's why he called himself. Yeah,
Clem in the other episode.
And you saw the flashbacks.
I got that. Yeah, I got that from this. I was like, oh shit, that's why he calls himself Clem. And I love that bit where they're throwing rocks at the stormtroopers and stuff, and then he's saying, don't do it, you're just going to cause problems, you're going to do this, and then they get hit with the rocks, they turn around and they just blast him, or I think they hang him or something, don't they? They talk about he was hanged, which is again, there's some political allegories there, I think, as well. With his, with being a black man and stuff. But that was I found that really intimidating. Now, I know we joke a lot about the stormtroopers, like, oh, they can't hit anything, and they can't come into.
Were they clones?
They were wearing clone trooper armor. They were wearing clone armor, but just after Revenge of the Sith Order 66, they hadn't made stormtrooper armor. So some were clones.
Yeah, it's in that in between bit, isn't it?
Yeah, some were. I can't remember the term. It's when they recruit, when they choose to be in the Empire. So some were basically military service people, and others were clone troopers. So I don't know how many years it is. I think Bad Batch is going to go into that, but the armor slowly changes into what we know.
Yeah, but they're not. Are they? At that point, are they kind of stealing kids like Finn to recruit them? Or?
No, the Empire never did that. They recruited. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah, it's only the First Order that stole kids without explanation or really delving into it. The Empire just fully recruited. So they got rid of the clones and fully recruited, and tried to make it like it's great, serve your Empire. You can do whatever you want.
They choke worlds, and then the only real thing you can do, when they've mined a world raw and there's no jobs for anyone, the only thing you can do is work for the Empire. And then a lot of people think, well, how do I get away? You go, they advertise it with propaganda.
Join the Imperial Navy.
Exactly, 100%.
Right. In that sequel trilogy, it did come across like he was like picked as a child.
That's the First Order. First Order.
That's First Order, right? Yeah. Sorry,
it gets more extreme each time, basically.
Sequel trilogy problems of not really fully explaining the ins and outs of your recruitment process, but instead of just having it plain and simple, they throw in the thing. I was stolen as a child, and then try and fix it in Rise of Skywalker, and don't really fix it at all.
To be fair, that was a bit like Dark Fate for me, where it was just like, well, you're still the Empire. You know what I mean? Just because you're a different set of cyborgs doesn't mean you're not Terminators. You know what I mean?
Still the same.
It's like it's like Coke, Pepsi Classic, all that stuff. New Pepsi Classic. But yeah, I thought that scene was really good because it showed that stormtroopers, again, with these, like Andy was saying, from the ground level. It's like when you play Star Wars Battlefront, to reference a game. Obviously, you do so much in that game, and you're successful to a point where you can recruit these hero characters, the lightsaber wielders, or the Han Solos, the Landos. That's what this is. But you don't get the trump card. You just have to do it with the grunts.
Yeah,
the lay that opening kind of, you can choose a type of grunt, but it's still a grunt. And that's what I quite like about the show, like you guys were going on about as well. But the fact that the stormtroopers scared me, that synchronicity then where they do the halt, turn, and it's like, oh fuck, it's really, really terrifying.
I think the stormtroopers in A New Hope were, apart from the banging of the head, when they breach the blockade runner, they kill everyone in that corridor.
Absolutely.
It's not Vader that kills them, it's the stormtroopers that kill all the rebels in the blockade runner. They were terrifying initially. It's only because in subsequent films that we didn't see that anybody really get killed by the stormtroopers. The whole sort of thing, they came in of clumsy and not be able to directly hit anything. But in A New Hope, we see them kill people. A lot of people. So I'm glad we're on that playing field where the stormtroopers carry weight, because there's that bit in this episode where Andor sees two stormtroopers in the distance, and rather than sort of take them on, he hides around the corner, and he's watching around the corner, isn't he? Like, oh shit, and he waits for them to go past before he moves on, and that's only two stormtroopers. So they carry weight, and I like that they carry weight in this, because it is the Empire. One stormtrooper is all stormtroopers. You will be punished for any indiscretion.
It's also, I think, in this show, what, unlike other shows, is that it feels like if you get hit by a blaster, you are quite likely going to die. Whereas in everything else, it's like, they get hit by a blaster on the hand or on the leg, or it grazed their shoulder, or
it's in the stomach. It's in the stomach, and you get some cybernetics there, and you're fine.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
Because they've got money and resources and all these things. But when you're like a down and out rebel who's on this random planet that you've been on for months or years, planning a heist, living in the woods, you've got a bit of Bacta spray, and that's about it. So if that even. But we're getting near the end of time now, so let's wrap up. We'll get yourselves to say final statement, anything else you haven't mentioned, and then you can plug your stuff. I'll make sure I include links in the description to the wonderful holiday special episode yourselves did, and then I'll also say to people, check out the Ewok movies as well. You don't have to watch the movies. I haven't. Just what they did it for us. They suffered through to give us great content.
They're on Disney Plus if you want to suffer
into vintage Star Wars.
Yeah, and holiday special is definitely. We watched it in 4K on YouTube, so
nice.
God, what a waste of my bandwidth that was.
But it was great for us to listen to, so it's okay. I'll include links.
Much obliged.
Yeah. What about our game? Suffering. I'm sure Mike appreciated our game. Yeah. Is it canon?
It was. I liked that. That was a lot of fun. I was answering along as well, and I was doing the dishes when I was listening to that. But we've got final thoughts and things. Obviously, I'll wrap up and things. But Andy, any final words you want to say, and then plug your stuff?
Well, final thoughts. I mean, obviously, we're halfway through now. We're halfway through.
We're just over the halfway point.
Just over halfway through. I'm impressed. I was very skeptical about the show, especially coming out of the back of Kenobi, which I was very disappointed in. I was very skeptical, and Kenobi did put even more pressure on my skepticism. And I am pleasantly surprised. And I'm pleased that I'm looking forward to seeing the next episode come along. We've had 3 shows running concurrently, alongside each other: Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, and Andor. And one of them was awful for me. The other 2 have been, really good in sort of delving into this political side. One of them is doing the family politics really well. It's Andor that's doing sort of a wider scoping politics, and I love it. I really love that we're really delving into the hardcore gritty politics. the desperation of people. It's what I hoped we would see, but then at the same time, I didn't really have any sort of expectations. So I've been fundamentally surprised with every single episode. And like Dan said, I can't really fathom where it's going to go, even though we know the full end game. And I'm enjoying it even more with that in mind, because I'm intrigued to see what the characters do next. And that's something that I haven't had really with anything Star Wars related for years, if ever. To be fair, I've not really sort of thought about, oh crap, I wonder what they're going to do next, because it's always been there, hasn't it? So I'm excited. I'm really pleased with this show so far, and I hope it sticks the landing going into season 2, and hope we get much more than just season 2 as well.
Dan, let us know what you think.
As we've said, I think we're all quite happy with the way the show's going. I think it's really strong. I won't bash it over the head. I'm looking forward to maybe the next arc. We were talking about these arcs, and I think maybe that Disney has listened to all these kind of one-off episodes, these one-off adventures. It's not necessarily for people. So I like that they're doing these 3-episode arcs. I think they really work, and I think they could incorporate those into their other series as well. I think that's a strong, bold move. And again, you can get the most out of a story as well with that. Again, one-off episode is fine every now and again, but I think this is really, really working for them. So if they keep this model in other shows, I think they're onto a winner. I'm kind of thinking it might be the next arc might be a kind of a prison break thing, maybe with Andor potentially. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe he'll be pardoned by Mothma or somebody else. Who knows? But I'm think that'll be our next kind of heisty type adventure. I think it's going to be a prison break episode. He gets a group together and he figures it out. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of maybe if he's in like a like that Banged Up Abroad kind of show where it's like a really dirty, horrible, ill-kept prison. I'm hoping for something like that. So yeah, that's my sort of prediction. But again, like I said, I don't know. What Andy was saying was like the little characters. I'm loving their story and their little arcs, and I'm loving the overarching politics and the individual politics and what they mean for each other. And again, I can't wait to see what's going to happen. That one security guard who kind of set off the whole thing, I'm really interested in him. I'm really fascinated in where he's going to go and what he's going to add to this story.
He's depressed as sin, isn't he?
Yeah.
Cyril Khan.
Yeah. Oh, he looked like a Cyril, didn't he? He looked like a Cyril. Cyril, what a horrible name. Yes, but like Andy was saying, it's a dichotomy. He's almost like the opposite of Andor and what Andor's doing, but kind of similar trajectories as well. So yeah, I'm sure it'll all come out. But I'm loving it. I want to see more. Bring it all on. Bring it all on immediately. I need it in my veins, directly into my veins.
Fantastic. Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. It's an unexpected home run, this show so far, and I'd say I'm probably enjoying it more than any of the Disney Plus shows. To be fair, I think Rebels and Clone Wars, they're slightly different in pacing and how they feel in a lot of ways, so they're kind of hard to compare. But Rebels is my all-time favorite Star Wars thing. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but with Andor, for me, it's pretty much already surpassed Mandalorian. Like, for me, as much as I love Mandalorian, if you take out, I know this is, if you take these parts out, it's not as good. Obviously, these parts will make it good, but the Ahsoka episode and the finale with Luke, if you take those two out, I do still really enjoy The Mandalorian. I liked it. I thought Series 1 was good. I thought Series 2 was better. It was a cool episode. I was like, oh, cool. I'm looking forward to the next one-off episode. And then once other characters start coming into it, I was like, oh, are we going to get a 2-parter, 3-parter? With this, it's like, no, it's not episodic. Let's just go. Continuous story. It's keeping you enthralled. That's what things like Game of Thrones and those sort of shows do well. By the end of the episode, if you're binging it, if the series already come out, that's the kind of episode where it's like midnight and you're looking at the time and go, do I need sleep tomorrow? No, it's a Thursday tonight. Friday I can be tired. Let's make myself knackered just to get through another episode. And that's what this feels like. This is a kind of show that I think really benefits from a binge, even though I love watching it weekly as well.
Speaking as a binger, I agree.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, let's quickly do our plugs, and then we will go. So, Dan, do you want to start quick?
Yes, so we're currently in Shockphobia Fest over on Spider Dan and the Secret Boars. So as of tomorrow, our next episode is out. So it's me, Tonya, and Ria, and we're talking about The Crow, and it just so happens to be my 150th episode.
Good.
Boom, boom, boom. So so it's going to get, Ria gets political, Tonya gets a bit saucy, and I get a bit oversharing. I think I do a bit of oversharing. But we'll see. Listen and find out. What an interesting episode it will be. But yes, lots of good stuff coming as well. And speaking of World War II, as of next year, me and Andy are planning our World War II month. So we're going to be looking at some stuff. And I've decided to add some guests to come on with us. But Andy will be on every episode, don't worry, and myself. But we're going to have individual guests come on and kind of see what they think of these weird, obscure World War II films. So yeah, and comics as well. So yeah, but that's not for a while yet. But I thought it was in the because we were discussing that sort of thing. There's that. But yeah, head over to spiderdanandsecretballs.com if you haven't already. It's a real hub of activity, lots of cool things there. Go have some fun, listen, review, comment, subscribe, like,
Breathe.
And read. You can do reading there as well. Put on some music, little smooth jazz while you go through my poorly constructed website. Yes, and there's all my collaborations with people such as Mike and such as Andy, all listed there. If you listen to all my 150 first, then you can move on to the collaborations.
Do the other way around. Do the collaborations first. Me and Andy make it work, even though I've only been on one show. Andy's the true backbone of the Secret Boars. You're Spider-Dan, and he's the Secret Boars. But that makes it sound like he's the badness. He's kind of the antithesis of the Secret Boars. He's so angry, isn't it? It's like whatever the opposite.
I raise the film up. He just smashes it down.
Yeah, no, Dan, no, it sucks. Fuck you. But yeah, Andy, please tell people. Tell people where they can find you.
So. You can find me primarily on YouTube, Angry Andy Reviews. I have recently watched 2 terrible films, both of equal terribleness. So I've got a couple of reviews up for Halloween Ends and Grim Cutty, which is on Disney Plus. And I would not recommend anybody ever watch Grim Cutty. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. It's awful, just awful. But yeah, so Angry Andy Reviews on YouTube. Mainly movie reviews and TV reactions at the moment. Stepping away from the collectible side at the minute while we're delving into this economic disaster, which we're not going to discuss because we're only talking about Andor politics. And I also primarily operate on Twitter as well, so Andy_review. And there you go. You can find most of my other ramblings on there when I'm not posting ramblings on YouTube. But there you go. Simple as that. And yes, I don't have Dan on as a guest because all he does is bring me down.
I've been on there.
We did The Matrix Reloaded.
I was angry. I was angrier than you on that one.
You were.
Well, I've not seen it. So
surprisingly though, well, yeah, stay away from it.
The Matrix films do just
watch it.
They kind of. I want to watch it, but they do just kind of get worse. And I like Reloaded. I think it's got one of the coolest action scenes in cinema history in it. But the rest of the film is not really worth it, especially at the end. And then, the third film, Revolutions, was weak. Just
to hammer home, like the Matrix Resurrections. Lawrence Fishburne made a comment the other day. Went, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't great either. And it was like,
that's pretty brutal for Morpheus saying that about your movie.
Yeah.
But you can find me at Genuine Chit-Chat on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. I post photos of the many comics I tackle on Star Wars Comics in Canon, occasional movie vague reviews to a very minor degree, like one sentence of my thoughts, and then snippets of all my conversations on Genuine Chit-Chat. And obviously, if you are listening to this show and you've not tuned in to Star Wars Comics in Canon, go and do that. You never have to have read a Star Wars comic in your entire life. You don't have to have seen seen all the Star Wars series. You just have to have maybe seen all the movies. That's about it. If you are focusing on an era or a character or anything like that, I've got you covered. I've tackled every single canon Marvel comic that exists at the moment, apart from like a 3-month delay, because I can't literally review them the second they come out, guys. I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of power. I can't go through that. But no, it's not a review show. I go through the plot details of each of the comics, so you don't have to pick up the comics if you don't want to, but if you have, it serves as a refresher, and along the way, I give you bonus information about characters that reoccur, fun trivia facts, species and planets that reoccur, all that sort of jazz. So check that out, and you can go over to YouTube as well, .com/Genuine Chit-Chat, and there are video versions of many of the conversations of Andor, as well as many of the Genuine Chit-Chat conversations, and everything's in playlists, so you can just choose what you want to listen to on the wide catalogue of stuff that I do. But yes, there's also Disney discussions me and Dan and Rhea and Megan did recently, and also we're going to be recording a new one next week as well, so that's all very exciting. And we have plans for the coming weeks, and we've got many plans for 2023 as well, and there are going to be lots of more collaborations and stuff. I still need to have Andy on Genuine Chit Chat, but you know, he's close, so I'm like, at the moment I'm like, I can always ask Andy, and so it's just kind of like, when I need him, I'll pull him in.
Just round the corner. Also, if you're enjoying this, go back and listen to our She-Hulk Comics in Motion podcast as well, with me and Tonya, if you want to hear our opinions and me talk about D-list Marvel villains.
It was really fun. It's a really cool show. It's different to a lot of the other discussion shows. You had loads of different guests on, all who brought something different to the table. Absolutely fantastic. I love the She-Hulk discussion show, and I'm sure you'll be doing more discussion things in Comics in Motion in the coming year, just like I'm also planning on doing a Tales of the Jedi special episode and a few other bits and pieces. So we shall see all about those things. Just follow us all on social media. Follow Comics in Motion P on social media, as well as obviously Spider Dan, Angry Andy, and myself as Genuine Chit Chat. But that is enough from ourselves. Thank you both for coming on the show. I've hugely appreciated it. Talking to you has been delightful. And please, everyone, let us know what you thought of Andor. You can contact us on social media and whatnot. And next week, we've got Jack on the show. And then I think you two may or may not be back. I can't remember what guests he has. Yeah. So
I believe I'm not next week, but maybe the week after.
There you go. I can't remember exactly, and it's all a bit static at times because things come up.
I've got it written down somewhere.
You'll see them both again at some point soon. You know, we'll figure out the week as they come, but they'll pop up again on this discussion show, and obviously I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. So we bid you all adieu, and as always, may the Force be with you. I'll make you all co-hosts. Then you can do whatever you want. Then you could end the whole meeting. And then that'll be the end of everything.
I've been co-hosting enough podcasts recently. Fuck that.
Well, yeah, with you, the She-Hulk one, which is now an end, and I'm sure you're quite... Like, whenever I do these...
In some ways,
it's like, part of it is, I really like talking to that person or these people and talking about this every week, and it was nice and regular. And then other times, it's like, I've got to do this thing. And when you're doing it, it's amazing. But when you're not doing it, it's like, this is taking up so much of my time.
Yeah.
Obviously, you get that a lot with your YouTube because you do a lot of episodic reviews for things as well. And then we're doing, obviously, the Comics in Motion stuff as well. It's cool, good fun.
It's been difficult, though. Like, because this weekend, I've had like 4 things to review. Rings of Power. And when you hate 3 out of 4 of the things you've watched and you need to review, it's really difficult. Like, it's really difficult because Halloween Ends, Grim Cutty, which is the worst film I've ever seen.
Wow.
And
that's
thankfully House of Dragon. But
which
Christ, 3 out of the 4 things, I'm just like, I'm angry.
No, that's not on brand for you. That's not on brand for you at all.
Who are you?
Angry Andor.
Even there, I need levity.
Well, you've got House of Dragon is, to be fair, so good. It doesn't maybe make up for 3 bad shows, but it makes up for some of them. 1.5 maybe. But we are not here to talk about those things as much as I would love to.
Absolutely.
We are here to do episode 7 of Andor, the announcement.